So if we are all in our bright shining faces and our places. Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Maurer.
Here.
Mr. Thomas.
Here.
Mayor Breeden. Here. Mr. Martin.
Here.
Ms. Stevens.
Here.
We have 5 present. We have a quorum.
If you would the approval of the agenda. We are pulling item number 6 on the agenda. That was at the request of the developer. They wanted to make some changes, and it was just too late to try to do it today, so we are pulling item number 6. If you're here for that item, we appreciate you being here, but stay for the rest. And so approval of the agenda, please.
I'll move, so approved.
Second.
Please vote. Mr. Martin, can you use your microphone, please, sir? 5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay, we are going to, if you please join me in the pledge. Chief, will you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing.
Shall we bow for a word of prayer? Father, we thank you for this evening. We thank you for the gathering of men and women whose heart are here to please you, to hear from you, and to seek your wisdom and your guidance. Father, we thank you for the decisions that will be made. We thank you that it will continue to bind this community together in love. And then not only that, Father, we also thank you for our first responders that take care of this great community that we love and we appreciate. We thank you in your precious name. Amen.
Amen. Please be seated. Okay, we're going to make some presentations. So if council and chief, let's go up to the podium, please. Oh, all right then. All right then.
What?
You have hearing.
Okay, that's me. All right, I'll lead off the pack here for recognition of service. This certificate is awarded to Mary Stage in recognition of 30 years of service to the city of Ridgecrest. Congratulations, Mary. Wow. Yeah. You've got to have something to say after 30 years, I know.
I don't know if you want to let her out.
Wow, this is a great honor, and I appreciate it very much. It's been a real great pleasure. The people I have met, the bosses I've had, they've really supported me. They've supported the shelter, and a lot of these things that we've been able to accomplish at the shelter couldn't have been done without my bosses or my chiefs that I have outworked here. But I love what I do. That's one of the reasons why I've been there so long, and I hope to continue there if they'll continue to have me. Thank you so much.
All right, let's get a picture first, and then I'm going to... Now we can shake.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you. Okay, and the next one.
Officer Edward Hamilton. So, Mr. Hamilton has been with us for 10 years, so thank you.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and say some stuff. I don't know if I'm going to be able to last as long as Mary, 30 years. I mean, city of Ridgecrest, I was born and raised here 22 years. I'm just kidding, 46. Yeah, I can't think of a better place to work, live, and raise a family than the city of Ridgecrest. And I appreciate Chief Strand for hiring me back 10 years ago, and appreciate Chief McLaughlin continuing to see me through and steer me in the right path, I guess. So, thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
You want a picture? Good. We like this. Good. Yes, good. We want a picture then. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, the next one is Paul Gillette. Is Paul here, please? I bet nobody knows what you do.
Probably not.
But whatever you've done it for 5 years, and we are so glad you're here and a part of this community. So thank you, and please have a few words to say so they know what you do.
I don't have much to say. I've been ACO for 5 years. I'm probably the one that you guys see every day out on the street. Other than that, I'll just keep doing what I do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay with us. You got 40 to go.
My honor to bring forth my friend, Mr. Jason Patton, for 5 years of dedicated service.
Oh, well, I really shouldn't, but just kidding. Now, I do want to say real quick that I've been with the city for 10 years, really. I really enjoyed my 2 years on the Planning Commission. I enjoyed my 3 years serving as a city councilman. And I'm really enjoying being a department head and continuing to work for the city, mostly because of these council members and the great leadership of Mr. Strand. Thank you.
Sure, call him. Sure. All good with the receive awards, if you can kind of come up so we can take
We have
pictures.
one more to share.
He's not here anymore.
Oh, he's not here. Oh, okay.
But he's not here.
Oh.
He just got here.
There he is.
Come on up, Matt.
Come on, Matt. In recognition of service for 5 years, Matthew Rowland. He was out serving the community, so he just got here.
Thank you.
Good to have you. Want to say something?
No.
No?
Sorry I'm late. I was out dealing with something that is over now. So, thanks for being great. We love you guys.
Come over and shake everybody's hand.
Okay, in the
Group picture.
Matt, you have time for a group shot?
Yeah.
For everybody?
All the time in the world. Let's do it.
All right, everybody come back up.
You may want to
First we want your own.
Oh, first.
Okay, now the rest.
Okay.
All right.
No, all of you guys.
Squeeze in, everybody. We'll do both. We'll do both. We'll do everybody, and then we'll just do the awardees.
Okay.
You think you're getting out of it?
Okay, ready? Ready. Here we go. Okay. Okay. Okay, now just wait, one more. One more.
I'll be in the back.
No. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
This next one goes to Kathy Lauren. She's late, but she's retired, so what can I do? She's actually pulling in right now. So, who becomes a dispatcher? Well, there were some of these things that I didn't know until today that Kathy finally came clean on. So, right out of high school, she went to the University of Santa Clara to study to be a concert pianist. She was granted an undergraduate professorship of piano and taught other students at the university. Who would have thought? Not me. She decided that she didn't want to be a concert pianist, though, and moved to Ashland, Oregon, and found an ad in the newspaper for a local dispatcher job. She said she thought, what the heck, and applied for the job. So she started dispatching when she was 19, working for Ashland PD. After 2 years, she decided to, enlist in the Army and was stationed in West Berlin during the Cold War, working as, not a concert pianist, a German translator. So after the Army, she decided that she would go study French and Spanish at the University of Oregon. And then her husband got stationed at China Lake, which brought her here, and she started at Ridgecrest PD as a dispatcher. In '94, though, with budget crunch, she was laid off and moved back to Oregon to finish her degree. And in '07, we had another dispatcher retired, so we reached out to her, one of Kathy's friends that she kept in contact with over the years, told him that we had a position, she applied, got the job, and here she is today. So a little bit about her character. In 2013 and 14, she was voted by everybody in the PD as Employee of the Year both those years. She was an amazing dispatcher, and we're going to miss you. But she's staying on. She's a volunteer, so I get to use her for free now. Come on.
Wow, it's heavy.
It is heavy. Don't drop it on your toe.
Oh, right. That's beautiful. Thank you. I've been so busy, to be honest, I didn't really prepare anything. I just wanted to say I have really wonderful friends who are super supportive, and I have an amazing son, Mark, that I'm really, really proud of. And I got lucky and found a job that I cared about very much. And really in the job, it's not about the dispatchers, it's about the officers. It's about keeping them safe so they can go out and keep the citizens safe. I do have some concerns that have to do not with Ridgecrest PD, but with government legislators at the state level who keep enacting, writing legislation, which ends up getting passed, that allows criminals to continually re-victimize over and over. There's no punishment, and these officers are out there facing these same people over and over again
citizens complain, there's nothing officers can do about it. It's very frustrating. So shame on the state of California, but I still love Ridgecrest PD. Thank you. Thank you. Hi.
Hi, thank you. If you come stand in the center where we can get a picture. We want to get a picture of you with all of us. Stand here in front of the flag. I have a question. When you retire and you get a standing ovation, are they saying, thank God you're gone, or I'm sorry?
That's what it is, yeah. Get the heck out.
We're saying thank you for all you did. Wonderful job. Thank you. Just so you know, if any of you were here for item 6, when we approved the agenda, it has been pulled at the request of the developer. So if you're here for that one, we were not going to do it. Okay, the next one is public comment. Persons wishing to address the council on matters that are within the council's jurisdiction and do not already appear on the agenda may do so at this time. Pursuant to the Brown Act, and the City Council may not take action on any item that is not on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes. Public comment section of the agenda is limited to a total of 1 hour. Each speaker is asked to provide his or her name. Please come forward if you have something you'd like to say.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, and go ahead. Sorry. That's okay. Thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Lynn Whitcomb. I live at 238 Mesquite Avenue here in town, and I'm one of the pastors of Cornerstone Bible Church. And I'm a member of a group of pastors that are signing a letter opposing the off-reservation tribal casino proposed for Ridgecrest. And the last time I was here, which I think was a month ago, I read most of the letter to you. And just in summary, as members of the faith community, we think the proposed casino is bad news for the community for 2 main reasons. Number 1, casino gambling undermines good morals. And number 2, casino gambling produces harmful moral, economic, and social consequences. During that meeting, when I spoke, several members or supporters of the casino objected loudly by reminding us that they are not members of our churches. And that line of reasoning was actually adopted by the Daily Independent and printed in the next edition of the newspaper, which I thought was really curious, because that's not the point. They may not be members of our churches, but we are all members of the same community. We're all members of Ridgecrest. And you can't get away from addressing the morality and consequences of gambling when the community considers the possibility of a Las Vegas-style gambling casino right next door to the main gate of the base. It's never a question of whether or not someone's moral views are involved in a public policy decision like this. It's a question of whose moral views will carry the day. Almost all public policy debate involves someone's idea of morality. That's why they protest. That's why people get upset, because it's always couched with this is wrong or that's right. This ought not to be. This ought to be. Those are all moral positions. So it's a question of whose moral views will carry the day. A casino the size of the Rabobank Theater and Convention Center in Ridgecrest will be a monument to someone's moral views. And the rest of the community will be forced to live with the consequences. So as members of the community, we have every right to speak out on the moral issues involved in the proposed casino. And I would remind the council that gambling casinos do have consequences. They produce harmful moral, economic, and social consequences. They promote problem gambling, which hurts senior citizens and families. In fact, for most casinos, the bottom line ends up depending on problem gamblers, and that's documented. Communities with casinos typically experience an increase in crime, including prostitution, substance abuse, driving while under the influence of alcohol, auto thefts, home robberies, mail theft, loan sharking, and street crime. And the expected increase in crime is why the tribe has promised to buy the Ridgecrest Police Department a new police car, and it's why Kern County is expected to reopen the county jail in Ridgecrest at a cost. So I don't know anyone's moral views that are consistent with these negative consequences. And I would say as well that it's never too late to act against a bad decision. I don't think, if your conscience says that this is a good idea for the community, that's a different thing. But don't think to yourself that just because a decision was made regarding the MSA 2 years ago, that's it. Because we all know it's a really complex transaction that requires action from the Bureau of Indian Affairs and other legal entities. A home purchase is less complicated, but it is also complex. And there are several opportunities in the process of buying a home when, if negative information comes out, you can back out and no one is wronged, and it's perfectly understandable. And so I say it's never too late to act against a bad decision. You may buy a house and back out when the home inspection brings new information to light. You may vote for a political candidate once, but then not vote for that person the next time. And in the same way, when the time comes to vote to extend the escrow period for the casino land sale, I ask you to please consider voting no. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council members. I'm Donna Hawker, 904 North Sierra View. Speaking tonight as a private citizen, I'd just like to extend an invitation to a campaign fundraiser for Assembly Member Vince Fong. It's going to be held September 12th from 5:30 to 7:30. It's going to be in the courtyard next to the Homestead restaurant there, and all are invited. It's $30 per person, and if I may, I would like to leave the flyers at the information desk, if that's okay. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Donna.
Good evening. I'm Stan Rotora. I was going to speak on item 6, but it's been pulled, so I'm going to speak now. First of all, I want to make sure you understand I'm not against the hotel and I'm not against the city selling the property. In fact, I'm all for both. However, I do believe that the solution to our overdraft problem should be connected to new business, new development, and that kind of thing. And I haven't heard anything mentioned yet, anyway, about using the hotel as sort of a starting point for mitigating our overdraft. My feeling is it's time to get started mitigating the overdraft, and this is an excellent opportunity. I looked in the Ridgecrest General Plan, EIR, Environmental Impact Report, this afternoon, and lo and behold, as I thought, the water supply impact was judged to be less than significant. So back at least as far as 2015, our general plan is out of date. Obviously, a negative deck is not an appropriate environmental specification for the hotel in that location. So I guess what I'm saying here is you all have a choice at this point in time. You can start mitigating the overdraft by having the hotel, or at least having the developer of the hotel buy mitigation land or mitigation water, or you could allow it to go on without doing any mitigation associated with the hotel and just contribute to adding to the current problem. So I would like to see this, requesting the City Council to get active with regard to mitigating our problem. And I think this is an excellent opportunity to start. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. No others? Oh, all right.
Good evening, Council. I have some papers to hand to you all. While you're distributing those, I'll just point out that everything that I'm going to highlight here and discuss tonight is out of the new version of the report on the casino put out by a huge consortium of community members detailing all the problems with having a casino in a small town. Now, some of the new information that I doubt if very many people are aware of is that we now have some significant people signing on to support this report and oppose the casino, and that's at the top of the first page. Former Captain Mark Storch, United States Navy. He was former commander of NAWC and commanding officer NAWS. 4 former technical directors, Burl Hayes, William Porter, Jerry Schieffer, and Sterling Holland, all opposed this. What I'd like to do now is jump to the actual statement by Mr. Storch, which is on the second page of what I've given you on the back. And his statement is, and I've kind of excerpted for time here a little bit, the Navy at China Lake doesn't need a casino immediately outside the front gate. Nothing says we don't care from the community to future BRAC commissioners more than a casino. It is cynical on the community's part. I don't care for a casino anywhere, but certainly not at the front gate. It is nothing less than preying on our youngsters. It sends a negative message when there is so much outstanding value from China Lake for the Navy and the nation. And I don't recall this coming out a lot, but what's being said here is, in the event of future BRACs, this may cause a huge problem. Well, you know what would happen to Ridgecrest and all the economic negative value that would occur should the Navy decide we don't want a base here anymore? Now we'd have a ghost town on our hands. And then from another former base commander, which statement is made, but the name is not yet attached to it, is that I would have a major concern about a casino at the front gate of the base at China Lake. I also have concerns regarding the sovereign nation designation, where our base would have no jurisdiction over what the tribe chooses to do, regardless of what the tribal leaders say. And there is precedence for base commanders to speak out. Apparently years ago he made a statement about the prison, and the reason was, even after people complained, it turned out that his position was upheld on speaking out about community issues because of employee family safety and security that fall under the command, authority, and responsibility. So let me go back to just a few points here about the problems incurred on Ridgecrest in the event the casino is put here in town. That's on the first page. We already talked about significant risk to NAWS and China Lake. You've got homeland security issues of various kinds, which are talked about in detail in the report. You got the sovereign nation immunity, which supersedes any base authority whatsoever. Any problems created there, they really can't deal with it. You have documented problems with water, numerous kinds that are in the report that's talked about, where tribes have basically pretty much taken control of the aquifer or in the water or the surface water in their regions. And once again, highlighted in here, serious future BRAC concerns. And of course, the weak MSA, which we unfortunately approved 2 amendments to last week, which gave us almost no real protection on the 2 items that were on that. And then the other thing, the Congress is actually becoming concerned about security encroachments on bases And if you look at that second item on there, at the bottom it says the U.S. military actually closed a Nevada casino for base security purpose. This was a casino north of Creech Air Force Base in Nevada. Obviously, they had some problems. They went and they paid, I believe, $11 million something to buy that property so they could close it down because of security problems caused by it. And this is something we talked about, and yet we continue to give the tribe all these accommodations, weak amendments to the MSA, and everything else. Everybody should go to noridgecrestcasino.com. In short order, the new version of this report will be on that, and tell your friends and neighbors about it.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Council, Madam Mayor. My name is Scott Miller. I'm a resident of Ridgecrest here. I usually have something written out, so I'm going to try this without being written out. I'd like to remind Council that we have an in-place MSA. I'm not sure what the Reverend was reading, if that was a letter, if that was commentary. We have an in-place MSA, folks. We have to remember that. I'm not sure if, I think it reads in the MSA that Council won't inhibit, bother, poke, prod going forward of this project. I'd have to say the chairman is a much stronger man than myself, is, in my opinion, there's a lot of poking and prodding of this project. We have a council person who is on a Facebook forum as the anti-casino page, which is a problem all to itself, that I brought up a few weeks ago, or 3 months ago. At that same meeting, I brought up about the meeting between the city and the tribe. And I think it was at that meeting where it was brought up that we didn't need to have any meetings, or we'd have a meeting if something came up. At the last meeting, I was offended by one of the council members on here when there was obviously stuff to talk about, and the council person chose not to have a meeting. It's offensive to me. I'm sure it's offensive to other people. And with that, just reminder, folks, we have an in-place MSA. Is it going to fix everything in Ridgecrest? No, it's not. Is it going to help a lot with Ridgecrest? Yes, it is. We read in the paper a few weeks ago that we have some businesses that are looking at Ridgecrest. Smart and Vinyl, I think, was one of them, which, as a caterer, I'm really excited about. There's a lot of things happening in Ridgecrest. Someone said earlier that people, actually, I think it was someone I was talking to earlier, they didn't even know Ridgecrest was here. They took the 395 all the time and never knew Ridgecrest was here. There's going to be buses that come up to 395. Last week I went down to Adelanto. I counted 23 tour buses coming up from northbound on the 395. Those tour buses were en route to Bishop, to Reno, to places north. Those are monies that can be spent right here in Ridgecrest. That's awesome. It's the casino project. People seem to forget that it's not just a casino. There's also going to be restaurants. There's also going to be an entertainment complex. We've had people standing at this podium right here talking about entertainment and not having some place to do it, or having a different place to do it. There's an entertainment complex. If you don't want to go to the casino, don't go. If you don't want to go, don't go. Reverend, if you don't want to go, please don't go. However, your church could go and have a concert there. Don't go to the casino. Go have a concert. That sounds like an awesome idea to me. Yes, I'm a newbie. I've only been here 3 years. I know there's people on council been here forever and a day, and that's awesome. As a new person coming to Ridgecrest, it's important to have things for people coming to Ridgecrest. We talked about the base a few minutes ago, and the base has said repeatedly, there's nothing for our people to do. Well, folks, it's not just a casino. It's an entertainment complex. There's music. I started recently driving for Uber and Lyft, and people are going to restaurants, and they're saying to me all the time, are there any other restaurants in town? So I'm telling people where to go and how to get there, and I'm driving them there. Tomorrow I'm taking people from Bakersfield up here to go go to our museums. There's things to do in Ridgecrest, and this just enhances what we're doing. With that, I thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, no other. Okay.
Excuse me. Dave Matthews, address is on file. The Right Reverend started out here this evening mentioning, or incidentally in some of his discussion, he mentioned different sets of morals. I would offer that there's only two sets of morals: God's morals and the devil's morals. As far as the sovereign nation status of the casinos, I can tell you now that there are people that if the Bureau of Indian Affairs take the land into trust, that there will be court cases challenging the sovereign nation status of any casino, not just this one, any casino. You already heard Mr. Neal talk about what happened in Nevada. I was not aware of that, but that is a good case I would think we should start from. Anyway, what I really wanted to talk about tonight was that some goings on in Ridgecrest that I think the city should be aware of if they're not already. And that is, some years ago, maybe 15, 20, well, no, it wasn't 20, 15, 10 years ago, we had this auditorium filled with a bunch of people that says, give us the superstore, give us the superstore. And you know who I'm talking about. Well, it turns out that the superstore, I think, is putting some other stores out of business. Kmart maybe is one, I don't know. I preferred Kmart because they were the only store in town where I could find my sandals at a decent price. And I wear these sandals as much as I can for a certain reason. The so-called superstore doesn't seem to care too much about really their employees. I have several stories that I could tell you, but I don't want to. But there's a lot of suits that have been filed against this corporate, and it's not all that people thought it was going to be. So I think in addition to just being aware, and I was on the verge of suggesting that we boycott the store, except that I know that wouldn't get us anywhere, and a lot of our tax dollars come from that store. However, I would like the Ridgecrest PD sometime to give me some statistics on how many times they're called to that particular store for shoplifters. The store is responsible for their shoplifting, and it's not very well maintained. So maybe some of the managers down there are actually encouraging it. I don't know. But we need to be aware of what's taking place in our city. And I would point out that perhaps this is a lesson we could learn from what kind of businesses we actually bring into town. So, thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other comment? Okay. The next item then is council announcements. Lindsay, you want to go first?
On September 15th, partnered with Desert Valley Credit Union, and they will be showing the first movie night for this fall. It will be Wonder at 7 o'clock out here at Freedom Park. And Saturday, of course, is the Parade of Flags, so that will be a major event out here.
Okay. Paul? Eddie?
I just wanted to make the announcement that on the 15th as well, we will have the Race for Unity simulcast that will go on. You still have time to register with the Emmanuel Baptist Church.
Thank you. And Mike? Okay, I've got some, I want to say this. I got a call. I got a call and then 2 letters from people complaining about people, I'm going to use the word living in Denny's Park. And I asked the chief if he could talk to me about that, because what is okay? And I was reminded that until 10 o'clock at night, anybody can be in any public facility that is before curfew, and that if people are living there, they are not encouraged, nor do we ask them to stay there. One of the things, so I called Bill Corley, and I asked Bill, because I know he has told me a lot of times he goes down to the park to talk to those people there. And he said, he came in this morning and said to me, he was there and there was a guy who was only one guy there at about 9 o'clock this morning. And he was there by his own choice. He lives there. He keeps his stuff in a little satchel, and that's where he spends his night. And I asked the chief, do we kick people out of the park at 10 o'clock? What do we do? And one of the things that others have then since gone down to the park and asked, what are you doing here? Are you here by choice? And most of them said they were there by choice. It's a cool place to stay during the daytime, which they are legitimately able to do. After 10 o'clock, they should not be there. And so I said, I would like to know, and so Bill asked if he would volunteer for the churches and see if some of the churches would offer opportunities for the people who were in the park. He talked about all the programs that are available if you are truly homeless. Not that you're there by choice, you don't have a home by choice, but that you are homeless. And everything from vouchers to food to a house that the county will offer. The county also has a program. If you qualify, they will put you and pay first and last month's rent in a home. There is opportunities there, and the biggest fault we see when I went down 2 different nights after 10 o'clock, I was scared. I figured there was going to be hundreds of people there that were going to say, get out of my park, and there was only about 5 or 6, and most of them were there because people give them money. One guy was bragging to me that he can make $20 a day, just us giving them money. So I want us to look at whether that is truly an option we want to be offering to these people. And some of the churches could get together and have money given to them if they want to give money out. I think we need to look at other options for our homeless. I'm not saying there aren't legitimately homeless people, but there are squatters who have gone to other places, and we all know those empty houses in town where the squatters have gone into. But this isn't what we want when people drive into town after 10 o'clock at night to see men, women, and children out lying in the park. So I would like to see if anybody is interested, would you contact me and let's see if we can find solutions for this, as well as educating those people that are there, that you do have options. You have homes, you have food, I have a whole list of programs that are available. So I'd like us to look at those and see how we can deal with those people in need and those people that are there by choice. Okay, so if you want, my phone number is 382-3563, but call me. talk to me and let's get involved and see if we can find homes. Maybe they do not know. I suspect some of them don't. So let's see if we can find that. Okay. Under other council announcements, is there any others? Okay. Next item is the consent calendar. Proposed action to approve draft minutes of the City of Ridgecrest City Council Successor Redevelopment Agency Financing Authority, Housing Authority, regular meeting dated August 15th, 2018. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Please vote. 5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay, the next item. Motion to approve the consent calendar numbers. I would like to pull the item number 5.
It's not a consent calendar. This is just discussion.
I'm sorry. Well, then there is no need to approve the consent calendar. I'm sorry, everybody. Okay, let's talk about number 4. Discussion and proposed minute action to approve an in-kind donation in the amount of $780,000 for the International Community Day Committee use of the Kerr-McGee Community Center to hold their second International Community Day event. Would you?
Just $780, not $1,000.
I was going to say, so we'll accept $780,000.
Good luck with that.
Yes.
I'm taking my glasses off.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, my name is Matthew Alexander, and I'm here as a representative of the International Community Day Committee. And before I give a brief overview about International Community Day, I'd like to introduce some people on the committee. Yolanda Alexander, stand please.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Li Wen Lu, member of the committee. Wei Wong, Fong Tidwell, and last but not least, our queen for 2018, Tia Roberts. Tia's originally from Mississippi. Her husband is in the U.S. Navy, and we're very pleased that she's also a Zumba instructor at InShape. So, International Community Day has been sponsoring activities in Ridgecrest since 2016. Our goal is to celebrate Ridgecrest's diverse and varied population. This September 14th, we intend to hold our 3rd annual event. We began in 2016. We had about 300 people at that event, about 500 last year. And this year, we expect it to be even bigger. We will have the Parade of Nations again, and this year we expect to have Taiwan, Mexico, mainland China, Philippines, Korea, India, Vietnam, United Kingdom, Colombia, Hawaii, and the USA. And if it's anything like last year, we'll even get a few more cultural groups to attend. I just might want to say one thing about Taiwan and China. We're very proud of a picture, and we included a photo montage of last year's event in the letter to you. And in that picture, you'll see the flag of Taiwan and the flag of mainland China together in the Parade of Nations. The folks in Ridgecrest from Taiwan and from mainland China get together. They wear cultural costumes, they bring food, and they put together a skit. And it's probably the only place in the world where you get Taiwan and mainland China cooperating to the extent they do right here in Ridgecrest, California. And so we're very, very proud of that. Just as a curiosity, because I'm always looking for new ideas, I Googled International Community Day, and you'll never guess what came up. International Community Day, Ridgecrest, California. So I think we have actually put ourselves on the map as a result of doing this. So again, it's a potluck. There's no admission charge. Everyone in the community is welcome. We're just looking forward to another big event. I know last year, Councilman Mauro was in attendance, Councilman Thomas, Mayor Breeden, and I believe, and I know Lindsay was there 2 years ago, and I heard that you and Mr. Martin were trying to get there last year, but you had another event. So we expect to see you all this year. So that would conclude our presentation. We'd be very pleased to answer any questions council may have.
Questions from council?
I'll just say, unfortunately, the same event that was last year at the same time as this year at the same time, and it's the annual League of California City meeting, so I don't know if I'll be able to make it back in time because we were en route last year. But yeah, I think it was a great, yeah, that was not fun. But yeah, 2 years ago it was a blast, and I know my family really enjoyed it, and I think it's wonderful, especially since it's a free event and it brings all of the community together and all the different cultures. So.
It was amazing to see the room turned over so many times. People kept eating and eating and eating, and nobody said, "I'm sorry, you've had enough." They just kept, and it was so many different kinds of food. I was amazed. Amazing. I'm sorry, Wallace, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I was just saying we were tied up in traffic. We couldn't get back here, and I think we called, we got the same thing going this year. It's on the we can't vote. They put the voting. I wish you put the voting in the morning, but they hold it out to the last thing for the league conference. You can't get out of there. And then time you get out of there, then we're stuck in traffic. So we're going to try to get back. If you can send us a helicopter for us, I'd be good. But you do a great job with it. Terrific.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Other council questions or comments?
No, unfortunately, I'm going to be at a family reunion that weekend, so I'll be missing it. But there is proof I was there this last year, right here in the middle. My wife and I really enjoyed it last year. It's a phenomenal event.
That empty space next to him was me. So.
No, you're across.
No, she's in there.
You're across the. You're
Okay.
across the table from me.
Okay. All right. Oh yeah, I didn't have any hair. I forgot. Sorry. Okay.
That was your chemo time.
Yeah, that was during my chemo. Okay. Eddie?
I might say that Jason and Mindy Beck do a wonderful job. They're very great assistants to us and provide us with everything we need to make a successful activity.
Jason, do you have any comments?
Luckily, they cut off my microphone. Oh, there it goes. No, I don't. They do this event every year. It's a great event, and it brings, like you said, it brings the community together. So it's great.
Okay, is there a motion or any more discussion from the public?
So moved.
Wait a minute.
Sorry.
Let's get the public.
Yes, council might know. I'd like to springboard first off two things Matthew said. I said, just like a true Democrat, Matthew willing to take $780,000 for a $780 thing. So, just kidding there. He gigged me the last time I spoke at their little group. So, well, if you want to really take a big step forward in forging relations between Communist China and Taiwan, I'd say just bring food, obviously, right? What I really like to talk about, I think we discussed this last year, I don't recall. Everybody keeps saying this is a free event. It's not really free, though. The city is going to be donating $780 of our tax money to let them use the facility. I think I've said this numerous times before on occasions like this. This is really not the role of government, which is what you're here about. Government is about providing law enforcement protection, about providing infrastructure. That's really it. Philanthropic events, things like that cost the taxpayers money. Obviously not a lot, but lots of little drips add up. And I don't know if we actually mitigated that last year or not. I'm not quite recalling. But if the Democrats or whoever's running this just wanted to get people to donate $2 a piece, they'd be paid for. It wouldn't be a problem because there's probably 500 people there, wouldn't you say? Something like that. And then,
well, it's not the Democratic Club that's doing it.
Well, I said whoever, this particular committee. That's really all I have to say about that. It's just things like this seem to continue to crop up. And it would seem to me that if you're going to provide free use of facilities for groups like this, that instead of making this, specific little action, you ought to just go ahead and decide that you're just going to do this for every philanthropic effort in town and make the Kerr-McGee rooms available to whoever wants to come in and fill out the proper materials or whatever and let them use it. We've got all kinds of clubs in town, and they have to find rooms, and they have to pay for facilities, and they have to pay for their functions and everything else, on a non-free basis. So, actually seems kind of a little not fair for the city to specifically hand over free use of facilities just for certain groups and certain activities. So you should quit doing it or get consistent and say it's a free-for-all. Whoever wants to come up here and use our rooms for free, have at it.
The criteria we used, I believe, was that you were not charging, and that many of the other organizations that do pay charge, and it is a fundraiser for them. So therefore, that is the difference in the criteria of saying they are doing something that will return back to the community, but also does not return to their pocket. It is just a giving thing.
Okay, maybe I'm somewhat ignorant of is there a policy in place that states what you're just saying here that I'm unaware of?
That is what we talked about last time, as why the justification for it is that it wasn't a fundraiser.
So anybody who could come up here and say it's not a fundraiser can get the free use of facilities.
They need to come to staff.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, and you can help me, Mr. Patton, isn't this once a year? This is not an every week, every month thing.
Correct.
So it's not, Mr. Neal, it's not that we do it or wouldn't do it for everybody, but we don't want to do it for once a year for this particular group.
It sounds like we're kind of doing a shoot from the hip policy here. I mean, if you have a policy, then I'd like to see a resolution put forward and actually adopt a real policy so that other people in the community, other than just those who know to call the mayor or call one of the other council members and beg for these favors, can come up here and take advantage of it on a consistent basis. I think that would be the only fair way to continue dealing with this.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Matthews.
Dave Matthews. I have to say that I agree pretty much with Mr. Neal on that. Just because it's a fundraiser doesn't mean that they have to pay. They should pay for it, because what they pay comes out of their funds that they want to raise. And I know of several events that happen once a year. They have happened, one for 20 years at least, some for maybe longer than that. And, there's an inequity here. That's what we're trying to point out, and especially when it comes to taxpayer money that is being reimbursed or waived. So I think you should come forward with a definite policy and put it in an ordinance.
Just to clarify, Mr. Matthews, this event is not a fundraiser.
I understand that,
Okay.
Lindsay.
I thought you said
No.
this is a fundraiser, and that's what.
No. There are. What I'm saying is that there are organizations in town who do very well for the community. I mean, they do great things for the community, like educating kids. And they are charged on their fundraisers when they use that hall. And that comes out of any of the funds that they need to raise. So, it's half of one and six of another. I still think you need to come through with an ordinance that states the policy. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other council discussion? Any other discussion from the public? Is there a motion?
I so move.
Is there a second? Okay.
Please vote.
Vote.
Five ayes, motion carries.
All right, the next item is a similar item. Thank you all for coming. And thank you, Madam Queen. I don't know what your title is. Your Highness, thank you for coming. Okay. The next item is a similar type. Is David back yet? Yes, you are. Okay. I had spoke to him earlier. I referred to this as I'd like to pull the item to discuss it. So, David, would you come and please talk to us?
Good evening, Madam Mayor, distinguished council members, and fellow citizens of Ridgecrest. I listened very carefully to the presentation made just before me, and I understand the nuances and the concept of equity, and thank you very much for giving me a few moments just before the meeting to explain the situation. So I come to you with a request based on a need. As you all know, my name is David Liviano. I'm a composer and a strong advocate for universal music education in public schools in America. One of the things that I'm trying to do in this wonderful town and great people that I'm privileged to live with is to compensate for the lack of music education in all 6 elementary schools in Ridgecrest, which are part of the Sierra Sands Unified. And it all started about 10 years ago with the economic crash, and music and other things were taken out of the public schools. The reason I'm requesting a temporary period of time until we get our children's chorus together with funding and things like that is that it is the proximity. It is very easy for folks that do not have a car to take the bus and to be able to reach the facility in a very easy and simple way. So I agree with a lot of the things that were said before, not to create a precedent and the things you mentioned to me. And I look upon you, Madam Mayor, and your colleagues as having the spirit of Solomon, trying to be fair and equitable. And I always believed, and that's why I consider myself a good American, trying to live by the rule of law. So I would never want to do something that I would have an advantage that would not be fair to anybody else. So I take this opportunity to thank the folks at the Parks and Rec with the distinguished Mr. Patton here. They've been very courteous, and the young people that help every night and all that. So my goal is to provide music education, and my first step is organizing this children's chorus, which provides the nurture and the cultural nourishment for young people to develop into good human beings with a lot of wisdom and kindness and things like that. So I'm requesting a temporary few months, I suppose, waiver to help us get things together, as I'm hoping there's going to be several organizations that are going to help us fund this project. And as good news that I consider it is for the benefit of the community at large, is I connected with Saracoso College, and we're developing a continuing music education program that I would like to be able to bring it in downtown Ridgecrest, as I would say in New York, because the location up there, it's a wonderful geographical position, but many parents after school at 3:30 will not be able to travel all the way up the hill. So one of the things that I'd like to do with Saracoso is create an agreement where they would be obviously able to compensate for costs and bring revenue to the city, to create a program that would be in the middle of the town. So my request is a temporary one, if it pleases the committee and you, Madam Mayor. I'm requesting a waiver for a few months until we get this going. So thank you.
I appreciate you talking to me ahead of time, because I had tried to get a hold of you, and my concern is what you're asking for. And it doesn't mean you are better or worse, but you're asking for 10 months.
No, only a few months, maybe 3 months.
Well,
Absolutely
but the time
not.
frame in here is 10 months.
Well,
and at 3 times a week for 40 weeks. And that is a lot of time and staff involvement. And I'm concerned about the precedent set.
Okay.
I discussed this with you because how do we say the next really worthy, wonderful organization that wants to come and use it on an extended basis has the same right to ask and be granted the same thing were we to approve this to you?
Okay.
And so I'd like some discussion from council how we do that and not set up something that we can't defend.
I do not need it for 10 months, just a few months until I align myself with Saracoso, and then we can continue the conversation and discuss whatever the fees are between Saracoso and the Kerr McGee Center. So I do not request 10 months, of course.
Okay, because it said from August 2018 to June 2019.
Well,
so.
maybe I miscommunicated.
Okay.
So
okay. After we talked, yeah, because I did ask you, are you getting any funding from the college? Are you getting
Not
any
yet.
funding from the schools?
Yes.
Are you getting any funding from the parents? Are you so help me understand.
That was my question. Is my understanding is the families are being charged to participate.
And they're not being charged. They can make a contribution if they wish to, and most of them did not make a contribution. We're talking minimal $10 or something that I used to make Xerox copies, and that's it, but nothing in a substantial form.
And we did already donate once for the tryouts. So my concern is I think we kind of gave a period of time, and this is a lot of staff time that we're looking at comping, since it's 3 times. I mean, even if it's for a couple months, 3 times a week, that's 12 times a month. That's just 2 months, that's 24 times. That's quite a lot.
Well, thank you for making the observation, which on paper it does seem like a lot, but perhaps I can refocus this and talk about the impact, lifelong impact that music education or education in general has on a child. And of course, finances are very important to keep things proper and all that. But again, the investment that you made to help the community, in a sense, I think has a much longer lasting effect than the cost that's an immediate concern. So
it's interesting that Mr. Matthews' thing would follow. Yours would follow right after. I mean, do we have anything in the chartered rates that you put out? Obviously, we've studied each of these rooms because they do rent normally for a certain rate. And you've got them broken down to air conditioning and lighting, and does it require staff or doesn't? Is it just straightly, we open the door, you go in? Do we know exactly what the flat, hard cost of, if staff is not involved, if it's just opening the door, if it's not, like in this case, there's no food, so no one's messing up the room, right. There's no cleanup.
There is cleanup.
Huh?
There is, when you have kids gathering.
Right.
Well, I clean up with everybody there, so we leave the place spotless.
Do we know, Jason, the absolute bottom line hard cost for humans to go into a room, if to do anything for X period of hours? Do we know what that is?
I'm not sure what you asked, but it's an hourly rate for the room. If you're asking whether the room is sitting there and people are there to staff it, it depends on the time of day. If it has an impact, an additional impact. So if we're normally would shut down at 6 o'clock because there's nothing else going on, and we have to keep extra staff on, sure, that's an impact.
Was this going to be in the evening?
It's afternoon after school, between 5 and 7 p.m. I have the kids there, they sing.
And so the facility could possibly, those rooms be closed? I mean, I'm just trying to establish what the absolute cost is.
During the time that he's speaking of, the rooms would be not necessarily closed if they're rented.
Right.
But if they're not, and they would be staffed up, the facility staffed up until 9 o'clock on a typical work day.
Right.
Well,
a typical weekday.
The other concern I have is, I understand music education is very important, and I applaud you for filling in that gap. But there's, I think of other classes that occur maybe during this summer or even after school hours, programs that are filling in gaps that the schools aren't providing. And all of those, the summer classes, none of those have their fees waived. So I think this is when we start to definitely look at, a slippery slope of everyone saying, well, because the school doesn't provide this and I want to provide it, can I have the facility for free? So.
Well, it's not a long-term proposal. I'm just trying to align and bring certain points of light and bring everybody together. It's a very temporary thing, and again, I'm sorry that it was written down as 10 months.
Well, what I'm trying to get at, I don't know. We're just having a brainstorming session. I think it's a community hall. It's a community center. I like the thing popping all the time, helping people, this group, that group, the other group. And as long as it's fair and we're serving the community, I think it's terrific. And so, number one, I think it's terrific what you're trying to do. Let me say that right off the bat. Now, the next question is, though, when you book a room, then that room is not available for somebody else who might in fact pay. My question to you is, what percentage of those rooms are rented? Are we like 90%, 60, 50, 40, 30? What are they? I mean, I'm also wanting, here's the thing, Mike, I understand what you're saying, really, too. I don't know. I'm kind of actually more lenient with all these things, the dinner and this, if they're doing great things.
Well,
and staff is here, and it's not a problem. And right now, we can make a hard and fast policy, but by gosh, if the rooms are not really, do we know what percentage they are rented?
Well, I don't have a percentage for you because it really varies from month to month to really a week to week. It could be, sometimes the rooms are busy every day of the week, and sometimes there's nobody in them during the week. So to give you a percentage off the top of my head.
Well, he wants one room, and we have what, 4 back there?
We have 5.
5 rooms. So.
Well, if I may add something to enhance your generous contribution, Mr. Patton and his colleagues are just wonderful. And when they mentioned that, we should give priority to the organizations that pay something, I immediately accepted. I said, sure, if you need to switch me or if you don't have a room, we spoke about that. So I tried to be as flexible and understanding as I could regarding, of course, somebody that pays should have priority because it brings revenue to the city and to the citizens that pay taxes. So I thought I'd mention that. Yeah. So I try to be as flexible. But again, if it's a concern that causes a certain type of friction, then I like harmony, good harmony, where people feel good together. And I want to be a good citizen, a good neighbor, and a good person. And if you feel that perhaps this stretches the generosity of the town, I understand, then I'll find alternatives. But again, my goal was to be able to bring children that do not have means of transportation to a central location where we have a bus. That was the whole thing.
I think it might be. And I hate to make a mountain out of a molehill because it's not like we're packed and booked all. But again, Mike, again, it's interesting. These two things fall tonight, right back to back, and it forces a thought, which is, I got it. I see where you're coming from. I mean, perhaps we have a little simple policy. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not making any motion, but I'm just saying maybe we have a simple policy that states if, in fact, your function is 100% nonprofit. I mean, you can't prove that you're not. It's donations only. It's not a fundraising thing, and on a space available basis, subject to your purview and approval. And, oh, by the way, you get bumped like that if there's another group that's paying the normal, you know what I'm saying? Maybe we have a little simple thing like that, and we initiate something like that until such time as that becomes a problem. Then when that becomes a problem, then, but, it's like the big community day. I didn't speak up on that, but now I will. I mean, this is a big, huge success thing. This is cool. This is neat. People love it, and they come. And it's a fun thing, and it's that's a good thing. And we don't have places to put 500 people around town. It's a great venue for that. And now you're coming in with one little room. We have 5, And so I personally,
I'd like to. I want to thank you very much for your kind words, and I'd like to say something. Already, this very tiny fledgling group of young people that are very passionate. Their parents are very supportive, and they make the effort to come there as much as they can. We already have been honored and invited to participate in the 1,000 Flag Parade, singing at the ceremony on Saturday, and we're also invited again. Great honor to perform at the 75th anniversary dinner for the base. So I think the presence of a group of young people that normally don't have access to music education, period, to elevate their spirits and to develop them into good human beings, perhaps we can find a balance in terms of the real cost, which is a real cost. Money is money, but the long-term benefits to the image of the town, the quality of life that we want to keep people that come in town and show them that there's a cultural aspect to the town. And there's wonderful organizations that provide music, dance, and other things. But I hope that what I provide is in itself unique in terms of my approach to teaching music and having a lasting impression on the children in creating a love for music and the arts throughout their lives. So thank you very much for your consideration.
I have one question.
We've got a couple others to speak here.
You say there's about 100 children that are involved in this.
Well, not yet. We don't have the big numbers yet. Right now,
because a small room isn't going to handle.
Yeah, right now we're only at about 20, 30, and not everybody can come in those 3 days.
What those rooms hold?
Pardon me. Oh.
Well, for 30 kids to do what he's talking about, he'd probably need a double room. It'd be too tight in there to put them in a single room.
Yeah, we never had 30 kids at once. We usually have 10 to 15 kids every day. And the reason I use the 3 days is to give people an option to come on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, because everybody says, I can only come Tuesday, I can only come Thursday. So I said, you know what, I'll work with the Parks and Rec as much as we can and give them an opportunity. So most people, very few of them come actually twice a week. So if I need to reduce it to 2 days or whatever you decide, that's understandable. But I want it to be fair to create the opportunity for them to taste what I do. And once they start getting involved, they'll say, you know what, this is worth it. We'll come twice a week. Or
let me ask you a question, sir.
Yes, sir.
Seeing you say you have about 10 people.
Pardon me?
You say that you have around 10 people,
students
that come up. So if you have that, is it feasible for, say, a church to open their doors to you?
Absolutely. We had offers, and there's wonderful locations. The whole thing was the proximity for the travel for a group of several people that basically they actually walk sometimes. They don't even have the money to take a bus to the location.
So are they centrally located on this side of town?
I don't know
that side of town.
I don't know where they live, or but I know there's a bus that comes here that's easy for anybody to just hop on and come here. So again, I feel bad that I'm taking so much valuable time from perhaps more important things. So if this becomes such a big issue, I understand, and I'll work with whatever you decide. So. Yeah.
Well, so if you say you'll work with us, then I'm suggesting to us that we would be willing to offer our church.
I don't have a problem. I have a car, but I'm talking about a few months.
We can keep that going if it's that much of a passion to you. Mm. But one of the concerns that I have is that the other one was an in-kind, once a year service. It appears that this is, and I know the dates are wrong, time is wrong. Right. This appears that this is pretty much an ongoing kind of thing.
Well, I'm hoping that the relationship with Saracoso accepts the idea of bringing the program downtown, and if they want to bring it at Kerr-McGee and they agree on the numbers, that's not my conversation. I mean, there's so many wonderful venues, your church, and so many other beautiful places that I would love to work with, and they're acoustically actually much better equipped than the Kerr-McGee Center. So, yeah.
Okay.
So it's just a temporary thing for maybe 3 months until December, until the end of December, and then by then I should have everything lined up properly. And so I'm requesting only 3 months, I guess, September, October, November, and 2 weeks in December until the holidays.
2 weeks.
So, I would say that maybe we should wait on this item until maybe if he wanted to discuss your church and it was listed completely differently in the paperwork package for 10 months. And then maybe if he could figure out for sure if he wants 2 months or 4 months or and how many days. It just sounds like it's kind of all over the place right now. And so I don't want to put our staff in a position of not having clear direction.
Well, my concern is that a number of people won't be able to come outside of this location. So if it pleases the council, I'm only requesting 3 months, 3.5 months. And within that frame, if I can solve certain arrangements with different organizations, I'll be more than happy to reduce the time. So it's maximum 3.5 months, but I'm hoping that within the next 2 months, I'll be able to just come and say, Mr. Patton, we don't need the freebie, and now we can make a financial arrangement to compensate for whatever the cost is. So,
okay, let's see. I know we have some other public comments, so let's give them the opportunity, please. Mr. Neal?
Well, let's start off first by congratulating Mr. Liviano. I appreciate what you're trying to do here. I really do. I think what Mr. Martin said earlier, I believe, actually just point out that you guys need to get a policy. Maybe that's a job for Mr. City Manager there, to come up with a reasonable policy for these kinds of events for use of the rooms. In a particular case like this, maybe, a reduced rate. Now, the point on that would be that most anything that people do that costs them nothing, they don't really put much into. They don't appreciate. If they're gonna bring their kids to any kind of class and it costs them nothing to take them to it, and that requires any work outside of just what they do right there during the classroom time, they're not gonna make them do it. It's just like, so no big deal. I haven't lost anything. So possibly a reduced rate if they're going to use city facilities. I think the better is maybe what Mr. Thomas suggested, and let them use the church building. And then you don't even have to have this discussion. We spend a lot of time on this. But in any case, these do keep coming up. They keep, at least, several months between or whatever. So a policy, I think, is necessary here that, so you don't have to spend all this time per item when it comes up. And just get it in place, and then you operate according to that. And if he needs the rooms at the Kerr-McGee or whatever, here's an alternative. If the council members think it's such a great idea, I'll let them all pay $5 or $10 out of their own pocket per week to help fund and pay for the rooms, and that'll show that you really do appreciate this idea and want it to happen. Otherwise, it's kind of like, well, let's give them the taxpayers' money. Well, okay, that's easy for you to do, but doesn't give the taxpayers a good feeling in their pocketbooks. So waiting is probably the best idea for the moment, but I don't know if he can wait. If he can't, like I say, maybe give him a break in the price and some agreement that that's only going to continue for 2 or 3 months. And I don't think we need to spend a lot more time on this. Thanks a lot.
Okay. I just want to make a quick comment because everything the distinguished gentleman said rings true. I cannot disagree 100%, but I will add one comment. There is a model where people believe that if you don't pay something when it's free, people don't respect it. I understand that model. But again, I also think of the Selena Gomez's of the world that come from a barrio, a very poor neighborhood, and parents don't even have enough money to buy milk, and somebody brings the child to a church or someplace, and that child becomes the next great thing. So my deep belief is that education in general should be free, okay? Free access, because every child deserves education without a zip code. So to me, it breaks my heart to be in this amazing place called Ridgecrest with amazing people, and for 6 schools, elementary schools, not to have a dedicated music teacher in each school tells me that we need to improve things. And that's the reason, that's where my passion comes from. That's where I dedicated my own time in April, May, with the help of Mr. Patton and the folks at Kerr-McGee to do the auditions. Because you never know where the next diamond, great voice, great talent comes from. So that's my kind of counter comment to the idea of if people don't pay. Sometimes people cannot afford $2 to get on a bus and they walk. I have two girls, sisters, 12 and 13, very special case, came from Tennessee. Sad story. Simon Austin, my new best friend, the great musician Simon Austin, who invited me to do a workshop at his school, introduced me to one of the young girls and told me in private, said, David, you got to take care of these girls. There's a special case here. So I said, of course, welcome them. And they've been part of my course. And I feel that this time when they come to spend 2 hours with me there is one of the few moments during the day that they don't have that stress, that's negative stress that is associated with families. So again, my heart goes out and I want to respect the community. I feel very welcomed here. I want to have wonderful relationships. I thank you very much for the invitation, and I'm more than happy and glad you have wonderful churches. The acoustics are superb in most of them. So I'm not against it. So whatever you decide, I will follow the lead. I know a little bit about music, but I don't know how to run a city or operations of this magnitude.
Okay.
So I don't want to take any more of your time.
We're going to call the question in a minute.
Yeah, we can beat this to death.
Yeah. Dave?
Dave Matthews. I think I see some possible logistics problems here. You're saying the hours are 5 to 6, 5 to 7? The buses don't, you're talking about the buses being the Ridgecrest Transit. Well, they shut down at 6 o'clock, right? So they can get down, but they can't get back. And I was wondering, could you move it up? I mean, it's...
Nobody has complained to me about the buses
not
being able to take a bus back. So that's a very valid point. I didn't
Yeah,
know that.
yeah.
Thank you.
And let's see, the other thing is that I was wondering if you had approached the school district at all to maybe have these. Well, then if they can't get down here, then they don't have transportation probably other than buses from the schools. But maybe the school district could have you at one different school all 3 days.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay.
All right. We're gonna call them. I want to make a motion.
Well,
I will donate $500 to cover you for the first few months until you find arrangements elsewhere. Other than that, I don't think it's fair to say yes to you until the next organization no.
I thank you very much. God bless you, and thank you very much.
That's not what I did. I wouldn't have said it in public, except I don't know how we get out of this without saying it in public.
Thank you very much. That's a very Solomon approach, and it's a very generous approach, and I'm very grateful.
Oh, you wanted to speak? I'm sorry, Mike.
I want to speak.
Oh, go ahead.
As contentious as Wallace and I were last meeting, I tend to agree with what he said today. Surprise, surprise. I would propose that we kind of compromise on this thing. We do it 2 days a week, from 4 to 6, for three to 3.5 months, until he can make other arrangements. I mean, it's not like we're spending tax dollars; we're just not collecting them. Isn't that correct? But if we have renters for the rooms on a certain day, we'd have to postpone his operation. Okay. And I'd make that in the form of a motion.
Yeah.
I don't want you giving $500 to
Well,
it,
I'm gonna.
but that's up to you.
Yeah. That seems the only way we can accomplish this and still be fair to everybody. So, okay. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
Okay. All in favor? I'm sorry, Rika.
It's okay. Please vote.
So let me make sure. I just
Yes,
want to
go
make
ahead.
sure what the motion is that I'm voting on.
Yes.
That we
allow him to have 2 days a week, his choice, from 4 to 6 for the next 3 to 3.5 months.
And we're saying that staff can support that.
Sure, we can support it, but are you saying if there's a conflict, he doesn't get the room?
If there's a conflict, the paying customer would come first, yes.
Right. So I let him book the room for the next 3.5 months, and then if I get someone that needs that room, he would get bumped. Is that what you're saying?
Or switch to another room that might
Or
be-
switch to another day.
Yeah.
I just want to be clear what my role
Yeah,
is.
that's it.
So now are we voting? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I didn't mean to push that. I meant to put no.
Okay. 3-2 then.
We
Still
have
passes.
3 yeses, a no from Ms. Stevens, and a no from Mr. Thomas. Motion does carry.
And could I make one thing here? My main concern also, and this is for you, Mike, and I totally agree. We don't, as much as I appreciate what you're doing, we also, for the public and all of us up here, and do not take this wrong, but we do need, I would like to ask staff, especially you, Jason, to look at the issue, maybe possibly entertain the thought of drafting a very simple, we're not talking about a health care bill. It's a one paragraph that says, that this would be the cost. Maybe you reduce it 50% or 40% or something if the organization can absolutely prove that they are completely, not being funded. And on a case-by-case basis, just a little one paragraph, so in the future we don't have to spend 40 minutes on this. Okay? And it will come up again and again. So I think that in the spirit of what Mike is saying, too, that I think we should have a little policy. It doesn't have to be a big one. And is that something that you might be able to entertain doing?
Sure, I'll get what you're talking about, something that would be presented to you for approval, correct?
I guess so. Does it need? Yeah, but sure. Yeah.
Because I believe, Mr. Strand, that if there's any reduction in fees, it has to come from the council, correct?
Yes, I believe that about 10 years ago, council passed a resolution addressing this issue, requiring that any waiver of fees for nonprofits had to come to council. I had Rika do a quick search. She hasn't been able to find it. I do believe it exists. If it does, we'll disperse it to council, and if not, we'll come back with something.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Since we have pulled 6, we will now go on to committee reports. City Org did not meet. That was last Monday. Finance? Infrastructure? Not yet.
We did meet. We only had really one item on, we had 2 items on the agenda. One was pulled. We discussed it. We got an update on the lighting and landscaping assessment district. It's going to be changed to just a lighting district, and I guess that's moving forward. And then we just got an update on other items, and that was about it.
All right, Parks and Rec, quality of life? Didn't meet. Youth Advisory?
Did that mean?
It's hard to have met when it's already the 5th and you have all these meetings first. The Action Committee, September?
What date in September?
It's going to be scheduled.
I don't think we have a date yet, do we not,
Okay.
Chief?
All right. RACVB?
I know we didn't.
Okay, Economic Development? Okay. Other committees, boards, or commissions? Okay, just reminding you that there's a PAC meeting tomorrow night at 6 o'clock here, and the Policy Advisory Committee will be meeting of the GSA. City Manager's Report.
Madam Mayor, I'm sorry, I have one
Okay.
as well. We have a
Air pollution.
air pollution meeting tomorrow at 2 o'clock.
Mr. Thomas, actually, they canceled that for lack of a quorum.
Thank you.
So they rescheduled it. You have an email looking for an additional date.
There's too much pollution.
Yeah.
Thank you for the update.
Okay.
You're welcome.
All right, City Manager's Report.
Madam Mayor, members of City Council, just a quick update on the new wastewater treatment facility. We have made significant progress with the Navy on the easement agreement. We have come to a tentative agreement regarding that. We've worked through all of the significant issues. Right now, the Navy's in the process of conducting a appraisal of the easement land. The city, in turn, is going to do an appraisal on the cost of recycled water that will be generated at the facility, and somewhere in between we'll come up with with how we're going to compensate for the use of the land. The Navy's also doing an environmental report that should be completed in the next 3 to 4 months. And based upon that report, the final easement agreement should be addressed. In the meantime, we're also now beginning to work on the service agreement, which will then deal with having the Navy become a regular paying customer. So we're working on that. That, unfortunately, is to be worked out with another group within Navy contracts. So we're now working on that. So we're hoping that maybe within the next 3 to 5 months, we'll be able to come back to council with something that we have, come to a conclusion on, so we can get moving forward on the new facility. So that's where we're at. Like I said, it's been significant. It's been a long time. It's been about a year that we've been working on this, and we had to work through some significant issues, and Navy made some considerable considerations, allowing certain language that normally has to be in contracts to be removed so the project can be fundable.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay, future agenda items. Okay, well, I'm going to come up. Lindsay, are you? Oh.
Regarding Penny Pool, I did send an email out to council regarding an additional opinion that we received from one of our city attorneys, Colin O'Neill. I remember about a month ago, we were discussing ways of funding the renovation of Penny Pool. I know that we had discussed Mr. Cordell's efforts to raise money within the community to provide funds for that and then have a city participation. However, there was an issue with the prevailing wage laws. And during that conversation, there was a mention about charter school doing a leaseback option. As it turns out that that option is not available to us to use as a mechanism to get the pool renovated for several reasons. One, basically the prevailing wage laws, as well as there is a provision in the government code that allows schools to do a lease back, but it's not available to municipalities. So we're going to continue to look for any way that we can to find funding to, renovate Penny Pool. But I still think it's going to boil down to is we're going to have to raise the money and make it a public works project and fix the pool. But any other ideas that we have out there that we can explore, we obviously will.
That was one of the items I was going to ask. I've had a couple of contractors come to me and saying, I'd like to put up some money or do some work. And I would like us to get together. Can we have a community roundtable where we can discuss how we can do this and give them some specific numbers, if we can, at least some generalized numbers, because the numbers that Mr. Cordell gave us were, I think it was 680,000, wasn't it? And that seemed
he was
low.
asking for the city's contribution of about $450,000 on top of his in-kind services. So I think that when we got basically a SNAP quote, we were looking at about $1 million to be able to run that, to be able to renovate that as a public works project, to be able to get the pool open. So I think we can safely say it's at least $1 million project.
And I would like to ask if we could set up a time where we could have a community discussion and talk about, because I don't want to come next summer and say, well, you've done nothing. And I know we haven't, but that is the perception. If it's not built, that's going to be the perception. And I want to put the heads on that before it comes to that.
I think staff's intent is to come back to council hopefully in October with approval to move forward with the Park Assessment District. And if the council approves and the citizens vote to move forward, then we can bond a portion of that money to use to fix Penny Pool.
Madam Mayor and City Manager, we already have a committee, I thought, in reference to quality of life, that we shouldn't that go through that in reference to us discussing it? We started it, and then now it would be nice to revisit that again through that avenue.
Yes, we can do that.
I hadn't thought of that. Thank you.
That's Ms. Lindsay
Let's
does a good
invite
job
the
with it.
community to that.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. The other item, I would like an item on our agenda to explain to the seniors, and I know it's not that all the issues we've had with the senior center, where we are with that. I know, Jason, you had some things you had to get the bids that were due back in. I would like to give an update on the next agenda, if that is appropriate with your time frame, and if not, for sure the following agenda, so we can report those items that we were working on.
If you want, under the city manager's report, I can have Mr. Patton come up and discuss where we're currently at with the project.
Let's do it when they can be here, if we tell them it's going to be an agenda item.
Sure, we can do that.
Okay.
We had planned on having Mr. Patton reach out to the senior center and make a presentation to the group at their location, which I think would probably would be more appropriate. Yeah. So we'd already planned on that. I mean, I believe tomorrow we open the bids for the parking lot, and I think the other bids are opened in about a week and a half for the renovation for the interior. I know we're going to have some logistical concerns with the members because we are possibly going to have to close the facility for a period of time for the renovation and then possibly for the parking lot upgrade. So I know that between Mr. Patton and Mr. Lauer, they're going to work with how we're going to address that issue. I believe that they plan on having the seniors go out to Inyakern during the renovation of the interior, and we're not too sure whether or not we're going to have to close the facility during the parking lot renovation. And if so, we're going to work with their staff to figure out how we're going to mitigate this as best as we can. But we do plan on having Mr. Patton go out and speak with the group and then inform them of what's going on ahead of time.
Okay. Thank you for that. I'm glad we're letting them know. Any other future agenda items? Okay. The next item is mayor and council comments. Is there any? Okay. Adjourn.